I was accused of being a pervert by my son's fiancée just because I had suspicions about her and looked into her true identity. After 3 minutes of phony video, I abruptly turned into the untrustworthy monster. Atlas forbade me from going to the wedding because he firmly believed her. She believed she had triumphed, that she had gotten rid of the only thing that threatened her flawless scheme. However, she made the fatal error of picking a quarrel with someone who is skilled at finding the truth. Furthermore, Cassandra Wells's reality is much more sinister than anyone could have ever imagined. Please leave a comment below and let me know where you're watching from before I reveal the sinister secrets that almost brought down my family. A father's instinct has a certain quality that makes it more acute than reason and more profound than reasoning. You get a sixth feeling for danger after decades of defending your child. Every warning sign in my thoughts was blaring that night as I watched my son Atlas introduce the woman he professed to love in my Chicago home. However, I was still unable to comprehend why. Atlas's face was beaming with the special joy that only comes from thinking you found your true love. "Dad, I'd like you to meet Cassandra," he added. "Cassandra Wells." She extended a well-groomed hand and walked forward with practiced grace. 26 years old, with golden hair that perfectly reflected the light from the dining room, and a smile that seemed to be aimed for maximum effect. "Mr. Wilder, Atlas has told me so much about you. I've been looking forward to this for weeks." It sounded like she had practiced saying it. Not as anxious as most people are when they first meet the father of their lover. Too silky, too ready. As we shook hands, I looked at her face and said, "Please call me Grayson." She held on with confidence and firmness. However, her eyes were not fixed on mine. They were cataloging, examining the pricey music system, the family pictures strewn all over the mantelpiece, and the artwork on the walls. I observed her work while we were having dinner, and it was precisely that work. She started talking about Miles Davis in great detail, as if from Wikipedia, rather than out of true passion when Atlas emphasized his appreciation of old jazz. She abruptly said she was a huge outdoor fan when he mentioned his weekend hiking excursions, even though her hands didn't bear any indication that she had spent any time in the great outdoors. She said, "I'm an event coordinator." When I inquired about her line of work, "I help plan corporate functions, weddings, that sort of thing. It's rewarding work bringing people's dreams to life." The response was too fast and too accurate. It was as though she had rehearsed it in front of a mirror. "That must keep you busy," I remarked as I reclined in my seat. "Which company do you work for?" A pause of a microsecond, so fleeting that Atlas missed it too, engrossed in his passion. However, I did. "The word Sterling Events," she said. "We're a boutique firm, very exclusive clientele." I mentally noted that I will check that out later. The discomfort in my stomach only got greater as the evening went on. She was too familiar with Atlas's tastes, including his favorite eateries, his college anecdotes, and even specifics about his job that he seldom ever discussed. However, her responses became evasive and ambiguous when I questioned her about her personal history. When I asked her about her family, she answered, "My parents passed away a few years ago," with the perfect amount of trained melancholy in her voice. "It's been difficult, but I've learned to find family in other ways." Atlas's eyes were gentle with pity as he reached over and squeezed her hand. She had him totally enthralled. However, I saw that she had omitted any precise information that could be confirmed, such as her upbringing or place of education. With just enough emotion, each personal question was sidestepped to make it appear terrible to ask more. I stood in my kitchen after they had left, loading the dishwasher and attempting to get rid of the uneasiness that had taken hold of me. My son was intelligent, successful, and 28 years old. He was worthy of joy. Perhaps I was being too cautious. Perhaps I was imagining danger where none existed. However, I couldn't stop thinking about how she had researched my house, learning specifics, as if she were going to come back while I shut off the lights and went upstairs. There was a deliberate, practiced quality to her. However, I was unable to identify what it was. I was prepared to listen more intently the second time Cassandra attended dinner. It had been 3 months since that first eerie night. I would ask the appropriate questions tonight. As we sat down in the living room, I inquired, "How are things at Sterling Events?" She hesitated. "Actually, I've moved to Prestige Planning. Better opportunities." Fascinating. She had never spoken of switching jobs. "What's the biggest difference between corporate events and weddings?" I asked. Her smile wavered. "Well, the logistics are different. Weddings require more emotional investment, A true event planner would have gone into detail on timeline coordination or vendor management. She gave a basic response. And vendor relationships. Do you work with the same florist? She swiftly turned to Atlas and said, We have preferred partners. Quality standards. Honey, didn't you say you had that presentation tomorrow? Traditional deflection. I made the decision to look into her past 2 weeks later. Atlas mentioned you lost your parents young? I remarked softly. Were you able to stay in the family home? Her hands froze. No, I had to sell it. Too many memories. Was that here in Chicago? Milwaukee, small house near the lake. However, she had previously claimed having a childhood fear of water. One wouldn't casually develop a water phobia if they lived close to Lake Michigan. The inconsistencies were mounting. Atlas was in the kitchen when she departed. Son, we need to talk. Something's not right about her. The stories don't add up. His expression stiffened. Dad, you're being paranoid. You can't stand that I found someone who makes me happy. I want you to be happy, but I also want you to be safe. After slamming the dishwasher, he asked, Safe from a woman who loves me. You're trying to ruin my happiness. Atlas, just asked her some real questions about her past. I can't believe this. Cassandra was right about you. She said you'd try to come between us, and I defended you. The remark struck like a blow to the body. She had been playing the victim in order to get him to engage in this discourse. Just think about what I've said. I'm done thinking about it. Cassandra makes me happier than I've ever been, and if you can't accept that, maybe we need some space. Without saying another word, he took his jacket and walked away, leaving me with the awful feeling that I was losing my son to someone who was deliberately ruining our connection. I had a feeling that this was not the end. After 2 weeks, Cassandra arrived at my door by herself. I was aware that Atlas was traveling for work on this Friday afternoon, though I couldn't precisely slam the door in my son's girlfriend's face. Her unexpected visit gave me warning signs. She said, Grayson, I hope you don't mind me stopping by while displaying a pricey bottle of wine. I've been thinking about our conversation, and I realize we got off on the wrong foot. I'd like to try again. She had a kind, contrite expression on her face. I could have believed that if I hadn't spent the past month listing all of her contradictions. Of course, come in. She took a seat on my couch and carefully arranged her large purse at the ideal angle on the coffee table. I saw how purposefully she placed it, but I brushed it off, perhaps paranoia. I brought this Cabernet, she remarked, carefully opening the bottle. Atlas mentioned it's your favorite. Our conversation lasted about an hour. She inquired about my job and interests, and she even told stories about her relationship with Atlas that looked sincere. Despite my misgivings, I discovered that I was relaxing. Perhaps I had been too severe. She replenished her glass several times, but I saw that she hardly took a sip. She started to sway a little by the third glass, and her speech started to sound a little garbled. She stood shakily and continued, You know, Grayson Atlas loves you so much that I really want us to be friends. Her heel caught on the edge of the area rug as she staggered as she took a stride toward me. As she slumped forward, my hands reflexively went to her shoulders to stabilize her, and I instinctively reached out to catch her. She was crushed against me for a brief while, and as she leaned into my support, I could feel the weight of her body and smell her scent. It was painful and awkward, just what a good person would do to keep someone from falling. She exhaled, Oh God, and drew back her eyes wide. I'm so sorry. I'm more tipsy than I thought. I stepped aside right away and lifted my hands to inquire, are you all right? Do you need some water coffee? Without making eye contact, she swiftly retrieved her bag and said, No, I should go. Thank you for catching me. I'm so embarrassed. I stood in my living room feeling uneasy as she hurried off. Somehow the entire exchange had seemed odd and theatrical. However, I was unable to determine why. I was unaware that a small camera concealed in her purse had captured every moment, or that she meticulously edited the video on her laptop for the following 2 hours at her flat. She removed the misstep, the booze, and the organic background of my assisting a person who was in danger of falling. Rather, she wrote a story in which I seemed to be drawing her to me, my hands on her body and her yanking away in agony. The editing was expertly done and sophisticated. She changed the timing to make my helping gesture appear predatory and inserted shadows where none were. She even succeeded in capturing a perspective that gave the impression that she was trying to flee, rather than regain her equilibrium by taking a backward step. By the time she was done, she had a 3-minute video that was quite different from the real story. Grayson Wilder, a well-known cybersecurity consultant, and loving father appeared to be the kind of man that no woman should be alone with in this narrative. She sent one to herself via email, with a timestamp, saved many copies, and backed them up to the cloud. She then gave Atlas a call. I ought to have anticipated it. 3 days later, when I was going over security procedures with a client, I received the call. Atlas's voice was icy, not at all like the kind tone I had been accustomed to hearing for the past 28 years. "Dad, we need to talk. Now, come to my office." Before I could reply, the line died. I put the phone down with trembling hands. It was occurring whatever Cassandra had planned. It felt like a funeral march on the way to his office downtown. Numerous times I had gone in this building to celebrate his promotions, take him out to lunch, and be proud of the successful man he had grown into. I had the impression that I was approaching my own execution today. As I went by, his secretary hardly raised her head. "He's waiting for you." With his laptop open and a look of contempt and betrayal on his face that I had never seen before, Atlas stood behind his desk. I was not given a seat by him. His words, "Sit down and watch this," came as he turned the TV in my direction. My world fell apart as soon as the video started playing. I was there grabbing Cassandra by the shoulders and dragging her in my direction. She looked confused and afraid. Pulling away, she staggered backward as though she was trying to get away. Despite the muted audio, you could hear her saying, "No, and please don't." It had the exact appearance of what it wasn't. I said, "This isn't what happened," in a voice that was hardly audible. "Atlas, she was falling. I was trying to help her. She set me up." "Set you up?" he asked with a hollow, sad laugh. "Dad, I can see your hands on her. I can see her trying to get away from you. What kind of sick—" "No." I got to my feet, frantic. "She was drunk," she stumbled. "I was preventing her from falling. That's all it was." His eyes were icy and aloof. "She told me you'd deny it. She said you'd try to make her look like the villain." "I defended you. When she said you made her uncomfortable, I told her she was imagining things. When she said you looked at her wrong, I said she was being paranoid." Every single word was a dagger. She had spent months developing this story. "Son, please, you know me. You know I would never." He slammed the laptop shut and said, "I thought I knew you. But this video shows me exactly who you really are. A predator who took advantage of a woman who came to you in good faith, trying to build a relationship with her boyfriend's father." "Atlas, I'm begging you to listen." I felt as though I had been physically struck by the words, "You're not my father anymore." A father protects his son's happiness. A father doesn't assault his son's girlfriend. It made my knees give way. 3 minutes of edited video erased 28 years of bedtime stories, baseball games, happy memories, and unwavering devotion. "Don't contact me," he added in a firm and decisive tone. "Don't come to my wedding. Don't try to explain or apologize." Cassandra was generous enough not to press charges, but only if you stay away from us completely. "The wedding." The words were choked out. He approached the door and held it open, saying, 2 weeks from Saturday, the day I marry the woman you tried to assault." Cassandra was right about you all along. I should have listened to her from the beginning. He left me sitting in his office by myself, looking at my image on the black laptop screen. The lady who had just surgically ruined our relationship would marry my kid in 2 weeks. The wedding is in 2 weeks. The truth will be revealed in 2 weeks. I sat in my home office that night and gazed at my image on the black computer screen. I was a dad 24 hours ago. With a horrible accusation that made my skin crawl, I was now a pariah. But something else was stirring beneath the destruction. Anger. Determination goes along with it. Prior to becoming independent, I worked in cybersecurity for 15 years. For companies all throughout the nation, I had followed hackers, discovered business espionage, and exposed digital fraud. Cassandra had chosen the wrong person if she believed she could alter video and ruin my life with no repercussions. If I'm going to save my son, I need to become the detective I once was. I arranged many monitors, emptied my desk, and took out hard disks that I hadn't used in years. I was no longer merely trying to prove my innocence. The purpose of this was to reveal Cassandra Wells' true identity. The video comes first. Due to an old practice from my security days, I was able to obtain a copy from Atlas's phone during our encounter. Always keep a record of everything. I put it into the analysis software I use to find corrupted evidence and deepfakes for corporate clients. I broke out every moment of that 3-minute nightmare frame by frame. The shadows were incorrect. My living room's original lighting had an above lamp that naturally cast shadows. However, shadows showed up where they shouldn't have in a number of frames, indicating composite layering. The audio was too thoroughly cleaned. Digital fingerprints from professional editing software include timing, irregularities, frequency gaps, and compression artifacts. They were all in this video. The metadata was the most damning. There were several save points indicating lengthy editing sessions, and the file had been created hours after Cassandra left my residence. But I needed proof from experts, evidence that would withstand close examination. I gave Derek Walsh, a digital forensics expert I had collaborated with on business cases, a call. Together, we had discovered everything from corporate espionage to insurance fraud. Grayson Christ, I haven't heard from you in months. What's going on? I sent him the material safely after explaining the circumstances. Derek was silent for a while. This is personal, isn't it? As personal as it gets. Give me 48 hours. As Derek performed his magic, my focus shifted to Cassandra. She was intelligent enough to have done this before if she was capable of producing realistic-looking, phony film. I began by searching for Cassandra Wells Chicago. The results were rather limited. A couple social media accounts, although they were only made a year ago. Her LinkedIn profile indicated that she worked for Sterling Events, but upon further investigation I discovered that the business only had a simple placeholder website. The narrative from her Instagram and Facebook pages was too flawless. Pictures of her at several events in Chicago, always by herself or with conveniently hidden faces. Restaurants and venues were checked in, but the timing seemed odd. Long pauses in between bursts of activity. It appeared as though someone was creating a false persona from the ground up. I broadened my search by looking for different spellings of her name, doing reverse image searches on her pictures, and comparing her stated work history with other sources. I spent hours searching through public records databases and professional registers. I discovered the contradiction that made all the difference at that point. An 8-month-old cached page from a victim support forum. A woman alerting others to a female scammer who preyed on affluent men and detailing a financial fraud. The name was different, but the description was just like Cassandra. In my search results, I came across the name Aurora Clark. Clark Aurora. In a forum devoted to victims of financial fraud, the name was obscured. Tucked away in a romance fraud thread, the post was 8 months old. Brief, ashamed confessions made up the majority of entries. However, Aurora's tale was in-depth, irate, and eerily similar. She called herself Victoria Sterling, 26 blonde art gallery coordinator. We met at a charity auction. Seemed like chance, but she'd researched my attendance. She was perfect. Too perfect. As I continued reading, my hands shook. Within 3 months, she was talking marriage, asking about my finances. When I got suspicious about her inconsistent stories, she accused my financial advisor of inappropriate advances. Fake tears the whole performance, made me choose between her and people I'd trusted for years. It followed the same trend. However, Aurora's story ended differently. She cleaned out my investment accounts, $2 million gone. When I tried to report her, she'd built a case against me. Fake harassment evidence, forged stalking documents. Police almost arrested me instead. I read over the replies. Different names, same woman, other victims. Sterling Victoria, Elena Rodriguez, Mitchell Sarah, always going after rich, freshly bereaved people. I carefully sent a private message. Ms. Clark, I believe the woman who hurt you is targeting my son. She's using the name Cassandra Wells, but the pattern is identical. She's framed me for assault using manipulated video. Would you speak with me? She answered right away. You're not the first father to contact me about her. She's still hunting. But I have to ask, are you real? She's used fake victims before. I supplied my LinkedIn profile references and credentials, anything to establish validity. Her subsequent message was one of trust. I believe you, and I want to help. But understand, she's not working alone. This is bigger than one woman. There's a network professional-level forgery and identity theft. She has resources. We agreed to meet in the city center. I called Samuel Barnes, a private investigator I had collaborated with on business cases while I was getting ready. Sam, I need help. It's personal. I described everything. Sam paid attention and made notes. Grayson, this sounds bigger than one woman. Multiple identities targeting high-net-worth individuals. Professional fake evidence. This is organized crime. Will you help? Of course. But we need to be careful. If this is what I think it is, they have contingency plans. Ways to discredit anyone who gets too close. I was chilled by Aurora's last message the night before we met. Bring everything you have. documentation evidence timeline, and Mr. Wilder. Be careful. She knows you're investigating. They always know. When I noticed Aurora Clark in the corner booth, the coffee shop was almost deserted. She was not at all what I had anticipated, but rather exactly what I had anticipated. 45, immaculately dressed, with a subtle grace that betrayed excellent breeding and old money. However, she had a hunted-down expression in her eyes that no amount of money could take away. As I walked up to her, she stood and cautiously held out her hand, asking, "Mr. Wilder, thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you'd show. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I know this can't be easy." She pointed to the pictures I had emailed her, which were arranged on the table. She caressed one with a quivering finger and said, "Her real name is Victoria Sterling. At least that's what I knew her as, but seeing these pictures, she's changed her hair, lost weight, but it's definitely her." Sitting opposite her, I studied the woman who had made it through what I was going through at the moment. Tell me what happened. Aurora's tale developed like a destructive plan. Victoria had targeted Aurora at a grief counseling session 6 months after her husband's death. Aurora remarked, "She was perfect," in a hollow voice. Supportive understanding, never pushing too hard. She said she'd lost her fiancé in a car accident. We bonded over our shared loss. The connection progressed swiftly. Victoria was frequently staying over within 2 months. By the 3rd month, she was discussing a permanent move and consolidating finances for efficiency. Aurora went on, "She was subtle about it, never directly asking for money, but always having little emergencies. A medical bill, car trouble, family crisis. I was so lonely, so grateful for her companionship, I didn't see the pattern." Victoria changed her strategy when Aurora began to examine the discrepancies, such as the family situations that didn't add up and the seemingly fake medical bills. She accused my financial advisor of sexual harassment, created this whole scene crying, shaking, saying he'd cornered her in his office and made advances. She begged me not to report it because she didn't want the attention, but insisted I fire him immediately. For 15 years, the advisor had overseen Aurora's family's fortune. After he was fired, Victoria had full control over Aurora's financial choices. Within 6 weeks, she'd convinced me to liquidate several investments for better opportunities she'd found. $2 million transferred to accounts she controlled. When I finally realized what was happening and tried to confront her, she disappeared. The cruelest aspect, however, was Victoria's departure plan. I found out she'd been documenting everything. Photos of me taken without permission, recordings of private conversations edited to make me sound unstable. She'd created a narrative where I was a wealthy, lonely woman who'd become obsessed with a younger employee. When I tried to report the theft, she filed harassment charges against me. Aurora shuffled papers across the table and opened a heavy folder. Email printouts, bank records, and photographs are proof of a sophisticated long-term scam. "She's not working alone," Aurora asserted. "The technical expertise, the forged documents, the coordinated character assassination. This is professional. There's a network behind her." She showed me pictures of Victoria, with various hairstyles, colors, and even ages that didn't match up. Driver's licenses, social media pages, and professional headshots all show the same woman under various aliases. Aurora went on, "I've been following her for 2 years. There are at least 4 other victims I've found. Same pattern, same methods. She targets recently bereaved individuals with significant assets, gains their trust, then systematically destroys them financially and emotionally. The package included security footage from many places' financial records, demonstrating money transactions and contact details for further victims. I was given a thick file by Aurora. This ought to be sufficient to deter her. But watch out, Grayson. You underestimate how deadly she is." The sun shone brightly on Saturday morning, mocking the storm I was about to unleash. Derek's technical analysis and Aurora's papers were safely stored in my briefcase, and I meticulously put on my finest suit. Samuel had set up shop outside the event, prepared to phone the police if necessary. This was my one opportunity to reveal the truth and save my son. The Riverside Country Club exceeded my expectations in every way. The kind of place where Chicago's elite celebrated life's milestones. Well-kept grounds, exquisite buildings. Mercedes BMWs and Teslas were among the vehicles lining the circular drive. Atlas had made a wise choice for his ideal day. I got there just as the ceremony started, and as the processional music started, I slipped into the back row. Whispers echoed through the crowd as heads turned. A few of the patrons knew me, their faces changing from astonishment to perplexity. Why was the shamed father in this place? When Atlas saw me, he tightened his jaw and stood stiff in his tuxedo at the altar. Victoria Cassandra looked stunning in white silk next to him. However, I noticed her as soon as she saw me, her practiced smile immediately masking the panicked flash. With a voice that cut through the quiet throng, the officiant began the customary words. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. My heart was racing as I waited until he got to the important part. If anyone here present knows of any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace. I got up. I have something to say about this marriage. The response came instantly. People turned to stare as chairs scraped and gasps reverberated through the audience. Anger whitened Atlas's face. Dad, get out, now. However, Cassandra had already begun to move her mask, coming off. This man has been harassing me for months. He tried to assault me in his own home. I walked slowly down the aisle and said, That's exactly what I'm here to address. My voice clear in the astonished quiet. I took out the first document from my briefcase. Ladies and gentlemen, the woman standing at this altar is not who she claims to be. Cassandra yelled, Security. But the venue staff appeared unresponsive, unsure of how to resolve a family conflict. I turned to the throng as I got to the front. Her name is not Cassandra Wells. It's Victoria Sterling. She's a professional con artist who has targeted and destroyed at least 5 families that we know of. Derek's analysis was delayed. The video she used to frame me for assault was digitally manipulated. We have forensic evidence proving the footage was edited composite and fraudulent. The crowd echoed with murmurs. Now a number of visitors were using their phones to record. Furthermore, I kept going, taking pictures of Aurora. She has operated under multiple identities. Victoria Sterling, Elena Rodriguez, Sarah Mitchell. All the same woman, all targeting wealthy individuals for financial fraud. Just as we had intended, Aurora Clark entered through the side door at that moment. She said, My name is Aurora Clark, in a firm voice that belied the quiver I could sense in her voice. 2 years ago, this woman stole $2 million from me and nearly destroyed my relationship with my children through false accusations and forged evidence. Now the audience was waiting for every word in utter silence. At last, Cassandra lost her cool. This is ridiculous. They're lying, Grayson, you pathetic old man. You can't stand that your son found happiness. I spread out the financial papers on the altar table and asked, Then explain these bank transfers, forged documents, multiple social security numbers. Your entire relationship with my son has been a calculated fraud designed to access his assets and destroy anyone who threatened your plan. She yelled, Shut up! As the lovely bride's facade vanished. You were going to ruin everything I worked too hard, planned too carefully to let some paranoid father destroy my future. Like a confession, the admission hung in the air. Atlas even took a step back and gazed at the woman he believed to be his acquaintance. Samuel was wrapping up a phone call when he said, Officers are on their way from the rear of the arena. Miss Sterling, or whatever your real name is, I'd suggest you don't try to leave. As police sirens screamed in the background, Atlas stood motionless, gazing at the woman he had intended to wed. The ballroom was deserted now, save for a few scattered rose petals and 2 men trying to find their way back to each other. Police had finished their work, the guests had left in stunned whispers, and Victoria Sterling was under arrest for identity theft, fraud, and evidence tampering. The elegant wedding setup remained white chairs in perfect rows, flowers still blooming on an altar that would never be used. Atlas sat alone in the front row, tuxedo rumpled head in his hands. He looked lost, broken on what should have been the happiest day of his life. I hesitated before approaching. I had imagined this moment for months, my son finally seeing the truth. Yet as I watched him crumble beneath the weight of betrayal, I felt no victory. Only sorrow for what we both had lost. Son, he looked up, eyes red and hollow. Dad, I'm so sorry. I should have listened to you. I should have trusted you. I sat beside him in the same pew where I'd once watched his baptism. You were in love, Atlas. Love blinds us to what we'd otherwise see clearly. But the video, I saw it. How could I believe his voice broke? Because it was meant to be believable. She's a professional, son. This is what she does. Studies people, finds their weaknesses, exploits their trust. You're not the first intelligent man she's fooled, and sadly, you won't be the last. He stared at the altar silent for a long time. I missed you, Dad. Every day these past 2 months, I missed talking to you. Even when I was angry, part of me knew you'd never hurt anyone. Hearing the words I'd waited months for didn't bring relief, only the ache of lost time. "You're my son," I said quietly. "Nothing she did changes that. I love you, always have, even when you thought I was the enemy." His voice trembled. "I never hated you. I was hurt, confused, but I never stopped loving you." We sat in silence, two men nearly torn apart by a master manipulator's lies. Finally, Atlas asked, "What happens now?" "Now we heal," I said. "We rebuild and learn to trust again." He shook his head. "I don't know if I can ever trust my judgment about people. How do I know who really cares about me?" "You'll learn," I told him gently. "Ask questions. Listen to the people who love you when they warn you. Most people are good, Atlas. Don't let one predator make you distrust everyone." He nodded slowly, though doubt lingered in his eyes. Victoria had stolen more than his money. She'd taken his confidence. "It'll take time," I added. "Healing always does. But I'll be here, no judgment. No, I told you so. Just your father ready to help you through this." Atlas turned toward me, really looking at me for the first time in months. Not as the villain Victoria painted, but as his father. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, son." We stood and embraced, hesitant at first, then fiercely, desperately. A father clutching the son he'd fought to save. A son holding tight to the father he'd nearly lost. Amid the ruins of a wedding that never should have happened, we began the long road back to each other. As I held my son after months apart, leaving the wedding venue behind, I reflected on the lessons God had taught me through this ordeal. Fathers carry an invisible duty to protect their children from a world that doesn't always mean them well. When I first sensed something wrong about Victoria, every instinct in me screamed danger. I've since learned that love sometimes means fighting unseen battles our children can't yet understand. Over time, I've heard similar stories from Aurora, other victims, and countless fathers who reached out. They share one truth. Real life isn't like the heartwarming family tales we see online. In reality, standing firm in our convictions often comes with pain and misunderstanding. Today's world has no shortage of manipulators who prey on trust and affection. They know love makes us vulnerable, which is why God gave parents intuition. When something feels off, when someone seems too perfect, listen to that voice inside. It's there for a reason. Not every story ends in a happy family reunion or grateful children realizing their parents were right. Sometimes being a father means choosing between peace and protection, between being loved and doing what's right. What I've learned is this: a father's love is measured not by thanks received, but by the sacrifices made in silence. God sees every sleepless night, every difficult confrontation, every time we put our children's safety before our own comfort. My advice to other fathers: trust your instincts. Investigate your doubts. Don't let anyone, not even your child, shame you into ignoring warning signs. True protection may look like rejection for a while, but the truth always comes to light, and God's justice always prevails. If this story resonates with you, share your thoughts below. How do you balance trust and protection in your own family?